When I was studying environmental studies at York University, we looked at the impact of European colonization on the ecology of what is now the New England states. And First Nations people were pulled into a European economy with beaver pelts forming the basis of trade for European goods, such as metal tools and food. And within a generation, the beaver was wiped out in much of New England. During our class discussion, one student asked why the natives continued to hunt beaver when it must have been obvious that they were disappearing. And 400 years from now, some young people will be sitting in a learning circle, and they will be studying those bright and shiny people who lived long ago in great cities. And a student will ask why those people continued to use fossil fuels when it must have been obvious they were destroying the atmosphere. And the answer will be the same, because we had to. If the First Nations people wanted to live and meet their basic needs, they had to hunt the beavers for their pelts and keep on hunting them until there were no more. And we keep on driving and flying and purchasing until we permanently alter the climate so that we can live our lives and meet our needs. The use of fossil fuels creates emissions of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that carbon dioxide traps heat and raises the global temperature. We are already past the 350 parts per million ratio of carbon dioxide molecules that scientists have deemed the safe level for our atmosphere. And most scientists agree that 2/3 of all remaining fossil fuels need to be left in the ground to stave off the worst effects of climate change. There is a carbon emissions budget that we cannot exceed. There is no line of credit for backup. Current estimates, though, suggest we will overdraw the account 5 times over in less than 20 years. The results will not be pretty. Already, we see glaciers melting at rates even faster than predicted. California is in the 4th year of the worst droughts in history, and many of their reservoirs have no water left at all. This is depressing. And we may use compact fluorescent light bulbs and ride the bus, and every little bit helps, but we live within systems that are inherently destructive. Systems that, despite decades of warnings, have allowed emissions to rise. Governments who have broken their promises to achieve significant reductions. Little has been done, and this is depressing. Those with power, when not funding climate skeptics to deny reality, pretend it is impossible to change. We are just too dependent on cheap fossil fuel, and the alternatives are too small scale or too expensive. This is all so depressing that I ate a lot of chocolate while writing this service. And it wasn't even all fair trade. But this future, the one where the Earth is just 2 degrees warmer than now, stinks. It means no more maple syrup, because the maple trees from here to Quebec don't survive in the warmer temperatures. And I will be really sad if there is no more maple syrup. And I will be sadder still when UCM has to sponsor refugees from Boston after that city permanently floods. And it isn't just about the impact on nature. Climate justice activists recognize that as things get worse, it is the most marginalized that are the most vulnerable. And in moments of crisis, we turn too easily to fear and hatred. Divisions of race, religion, class, and gender become chasms. The Hunger Games will become a global reality as billions compete for scarce resources of food and water. And I realize that my love of post-apocalyptic fiction may arise from the sense that I might just get to meet the apocalypse. And it isn't going to be the cool one with zombies, but the one that is murky, dank, and dark. This is depressing. Like the First Nations people who kept on hunting the disappearing beavers, we keep on burning fossil fuels. We are all complicit in environmental destruction. Now, the Aboriginal people of this continent were being pulled into an entirely different way of being in the world. They were conquered and reeling from it. Their economies had been based on sharing land and sharing resources. Market profits and private ownership were alien concepts. Our situation is different. We did not just encounter a strange ideology. We live our lives immersed in this free market economy like the water we might swim in. And we aren't trading for necessities so much as for the 2 for $10 t-shirts at the Gap. This really is depressing. And as much as it all is terrible, as much as it all saddens me, and I would rather be watching the final season of Mad Men, we need to talk about the impact of climate change. Climate change isn't a story of our time. It is the only story. And as Unitarian Universalists, we try to see clearly, to understand honestly, however bleak and harsh reality may be. We hold up our chalice flame high and shine the light upon the truth. And we try very hard not to look away. Our current economic system, free market capitalism, is flawed. It is based on endless, unsustainable growth. It's based on cheap energy. And capitalism almost inevitably sacrifices long-term health for short-term gain. Writer Ursula Le Guin reminds us, we live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable. So did the divine right of kings. Any human power can be resisted and changed by human beings. Any human power can be resisted and changed by human beings. No system is too big to evolve. I want a healthy and just society for our children and our children's 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 children. I need for Audrey and Max and Charlotte and Anna and all of our fabulous kids to have a bright future. And it's my hope that all of you need this too.